Alrighty, guys. Today we're going to be talking about episode Echoes, what it did wrong, what it did right, and overall just kind of why it was a flop. And a lot of people might look back at Echoes kind of fondly because it was right when the final shape launched. It was kind of I don't know, it was just a weird era. Like, even though Echoes didn't have a ton of content in it, some of us might remember it fondly more than others just because of the fact that it came right on the heels of the final shape. However, even though I might look at that time as, kind of a fond memory and stuff like that, I am not oblivious to the fact that Echoes was kind of a terrible season. And I'm going to get into why that was and what they kind of did right, but also what it did wrong, and we're just going to talk about it a little bit. This might also seem like a weird time to be jumping into this, but I actually think it's a great time because Edge of Fate is right around the corner, and with it, all of the Echoes, Revenant, and Heresy activities and everything else relating to those seasons that's like a playable activity will be vaulted. Some of it might get put into the portal later on, I'm not really sure, but to my understanding, when Edge of Fate launches, all of this stuff is going away. So, perfect time to look back at it and kind of see, hey, like, what went wrong, what went right, why did we not really like Echoes overall? So, starting with Act 1, on June 11th, 2024, right after the Final Shape launch, Echoes Act 1 released, and with it, it brought Breach Executable and Enigma Protocol. Now, there was nothing really wrong with either of these activities, although the power climb, I remember, was kind of steep. Like, I remember jumping into these activities and just getting smacked around, especially in Enigma Protocol, because I think that the power requirement was like 40 points higher than Breach Executable for some reason. Bungie, I don't know what you guys were thinking with that, but that immediately was off-putting about that activity, and I feel like a lot of people have a negative experience, or a negative point of view with Enigma Protocol, because when I jumped in, I was getting smacked. Going back and playing through it, it's not really that difficult, but the power, just because you were so under leveled for the activity as far as power goes, it just felt way too hard, at least to me and a lot of other people. And I know people are going to go, oh, well, everybody always complains about how easy Destiny 2 is. Like, what's wrong? Was it too much for you? Yeah, it actually was. Right as it released, you want to jump in, you want to check these activities out because the season is basically telling you to through the seasonal quests and everything, right? And it was tough, but I did do it. But I did not have a positive time with Enigma Protocol. I think that's the one where you're timed and everything, and you have to go through the mission and keep the timer going and that kind of thing, which is actually funny because when you see the background gameplay, when I was actually playing Enigma Protocol, the timer actually seized up and was just not working. So I thought that was kind of funny. And it was a perfect sort of metaphor for this whole season or episode. It just didn't work, man. It did not work. People did not enjoy it. Echoes was not the worst content in Destiny, not by a long shot. It just wasn't good. It was average. It was safe. They knew that it wasn't going to completely flop, but they also knew that they weren't putting out the best of their best when they released Echoes. I don't care what anyone says. Breach Executable was where you go through Nessus and you basically get these data drops and you dunk them. You kill a boss at the end, you get your loot. The one thing I will say about these activities was the coral part was actually pretty cool. So for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, they had these areas with coral, which was so... Honestly, there was negatives to that too. I'll get into it in a minute. But they had these areas with coral, and you could go and pick up the coral. And then at the end of the mission, you could dunk your coral into a little thing, and it would give you more weapons, maybe another red border. It was cool. It was kind of an alternate currency, and Destiny has not done a lot of stuff like that, so I thought it was cool to see that in Echoes. That was one good thing, but one thing about the coral that pissed me off was whenever you would find a bunch of coral and you'd go around picking it up, your teammates would go to the next area and the game would pull you away from the coral to the next area so you couldn't pick it all up. And it didn't matter if you said something in chat or if you said something on voice or whatever, people just didn't care. They would keep going through the mission and pull everyone to the next area. That was so annoying, and Bungie, honestly, you guys should have made that timer way more or something, at least for that specific activity, because that that kept happening like every single time I would play. Whenever I would jump into Breach Executable, I knew that that was going to happen at least one time during the mission. So that was kind of tilting, but besides that, I mean, Breach Executable wasn't bad. It just wasn't that great. Enigma Protocol, I think, just had too steep of a power curve. I don't think Enigma Protocol was really that bad either. It had some hard challenges to get the title for the episode, like you had to find every single time extension piece thingy in a single run to like unlock the title fully. I actually enjoyed doing that challenge. I didn't think I would, but I was like looking everywhere, like spurging out, like where's the next like plus 30 seconds thingy that I gotta shoot. And I don't know, I did actually kind of enjoy Enigma Protocol, I guess, but Breach Executable was just... It was super unremarkable. You know what I mean? It was like running a strike or something. That was the level of seasonal activity we got there. Like, I would argue that we've gotten public event seasonal activities that aged better than the Echoes seasonal activities. Once again, it just wasn't the best of the best. Act 2, very unremarkable. Act 2 of Echoes, I believe, just brought the Battleground missions, which... was kind of crazy. It was like basically they gave us 3 strikes and they were like, here's Act 2, it's 3 strikes, knock yourself out. And it really felt like an insult, like especially after the final shape and how everything was like building up to this crazy thing, you know, you take the witness out and all this stuff happens, this crazy raid, and now we have 3 strikes for Act 2 of episode Echoes. Like, I was scratching my head going, what is Bungie doing? For sure, Act 3 has to be way better, right? Act 3 dropped, and it basically all revolved around the Encore exotic mission and running it like 8 times or something like that. It was like basically just running it on repeat, and I did enjoy it. But it just felt like, man, Bungie is really just trying to squeeze as much playtime as they can out of us and put in like the smallest amount of work while doing it. Like, they wanted to barely drop any content but get more playtime out of us. And I think that's why a lot of people quit playing during Echoes, is because it just felt like they were drip feeding us this content. And it really wasn't that great, but they were expecting us to spend more time than ever running the same missions over and over and over. And people just didn't fall for it, man. It just didn't work. Bungie was not convincing enough. So just so we're clear, all of the activities in Echoes basically gets summed up to Breach Executable, Enigma Protocol, Battlegrounds, and the Encore exotic mission. That is it for activities. Like, it really was not that crazy, man. Echoes was not what I expected when I first jumped into Echoes. I was expecting a lot more than that. And the fact that I spent so much time playing it is kind of pathetic. Like, looking back, I'm like, damn, dude, I really did that. Like, what a loser. But at the same time, I did have moments where I enjoyed it. And that, I mean, that's literally all there was to that season. Like, and I am calling Echoes a season because really that's what it was. If they would have called it a season, people would have been like, wait a minute, so you're giving me less content, the season's gonna take longer to end, and you know, we're just calling it something different. Like, that's basically all they did. They basically just dressed up seasons in a different outfit and said, hey, this is episodes now for Echoes, Revenant, and Heresy. So honestly, man, Echoes, I'm not going to ever remember it fondly purely because of that. Not to mention, the only good weapons we got out of Echoes was the area denial frame grenade launcher and the rocket sidearm, the solar rocket sidearm. Those were the only 2 that I can think of off the top of my head. Yeah, there was other notable weapons like the stasis auto rifle. I remember people just kind of crapping on that thing, but I actually used it and was like, this thing isn't bad. The problem with that thing was that the scope was so big. It covered like 2/3 of your screen when you were using that gun. And just so you guys know, I play on max FOV. So if somebody's playing on like a lower FOV using that gun, I don't even know, man. It takes up like 3/4 of your screen or something. So that was my problem with that gun. Like, it was fun to use and everything, but I'm like, bro, I can't see the game when I'm playing with this gun. So I don't know what Bungie was thinking with any of that, man. It was crazy. Now, the Choir of One auto rifle that came from the Encore exotic mission, that was pretty good, especially when it first came out. It did get nerfed later on, if I remember right. guy. But when Choir of One came out, I was like, oh, this thing is sick. And you could just kind of hip fire it and spray like anything down. Like it would totally annihilate anything, regardless of, you know, yellow bar, orange bar, didn't matter. If you were using that hip fire mode on Choir of One, you could take out raid bosses extremely quickly. I don't know if you guys played during that whole thing, but when Choir of One first came out and it wasn't nerfed, it was insane. So I don't know. I remember certain aspects of the season fondly, but overall I don't think it was very good. And I think that Bungie did themselves a huge disservice, because the first season coming out of the Final Shape, like, you know, right after the Final Shape launched, Echoes came out like days later. I think they should have made that first episode, or first season rather, hit harder. Like making Echoes just a content drip was a massive mistake. Now, next episode we're going to get into Revenant, which definitely has its own issues. But if you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to slap that subscribe button and also consider turning all notifications on, guys. Additionally, if you want to leave me a comment, letting me know what your thoughts were on episode Echoes, I would love to hear, and I try to respond to all of my comments. Guys, I want to make it clear, I don't hate Bungie, and I think they've made some poor decisions, okay? And I'm trying to give my unfiltered thoughts here. I'm not trying to join onto the Bungie hate train that's been chugging along as of recently. I've been on the Bungie hate train before it was cool, all right? And not because I hate Bungie, but because I hate some of the extremely pin-headed decisions that they make about the game that I care about, okay, guys? Just to be clear, I don't have a problem with Bungie. I think that they can do better. That's why I'm so tough on them. But we will see you next episode for the Revenant version of this video, where we go through Revenant and just talk about it, talk about what was good, talk about what was bad. Can't wait for it. We'll see you guys then, though, and peace out.